Hello people and welcome back to MBTI and Enneagram Connections. My name is Toby, and today I did want to talk about the ISFJ and their primary Enneagram type, the 1, but because I am an INFP, introverted sensing is hard for me to understand, and I want to do this properly. So I'm gonna do a little more research before I actually dive into the ISFJ, just to make sure that I do you guys justice because you deserve it. But don't worry, it's coming up. What I want to talk about today is the thing called inferior functions in the MBTI system and how it can immensely help work with your Enneagram traps. First, definitions. What is an Enneagram trap? And what is an inferior function? An Enneagram trap is basically the thing you do, your type do, when it's unhealthy. When an 8 is unhealthy, they tend to get very aggressive. So getting very aggressive is an 8 trap. When a 1 is very unhealthy, they tend to be to overload themselves and be very perfectionistic. So that's a 1 trap. When a 9 is very unhealthy, they tend to disconnect and emotionally go to sleep. So that's a 9 trap, and so on and so forth. An inferior function in MBTI is the polar opposite of your primary function, or dominant function, if you will. So if, for example, you are an INFP, your dominant function is introverted feeling, and your inferior function is then extroverted thinking. And what it does, the inferior function, is while the two primary functions are conscious and you can control them and you can use them as you want, the inferior function is subconscious and it's lying there under the surface. You're using it all the time, but you're not noticing it, and suddenly it will burst and you will go crazy and you'll be able to use it so well. And then it kind of goes to sleep again. But you can, if you sorry, I still have a cold. You can, if you work with your inferior function, learn to use it really, really well on purpose for the thing you want. And then you can use it to help work with your Enneagram traps, which I would postulate that it's very good for. So let's take a look at an example here. Let's look at, for example, an INFP 9, like myself. Easy example, so hurry. But anyway, my 9 trap is to go to sleep emotionally. It's to disconnect from other people and from my own emotions and my own wants, and just kind of become a lobotomized shade of myself to avoid conflict and get some sort of peace, even if the peace is just nothingness. Now, if I could master my inferior function, which is extroverted thinking would allow me to look at myself from the outside. It would allow me to watch my own behavior and analytically, logically evaluate it. And I would be able to say, hold on, that's not good, stop that. And I think that would be extremely helpful for me. And that's definitely something I'm working on, because I think that's a good way to improve yourself as with your personality and work with your traps. Let me see if I can think of another example. Oh yeah, an INTP 5, as we have talked about. Their one of their traps is to become over analytical and kind of shut themselves off from everybody else, and just be so into their knowledge thinks that they lose valuable connections. If they could tap into their inferior function, which is extroverted feeling, that would probably suddenly make them very social and make it very easy for them to reestablish some of these connections that they might otherwise have lost, and that would be incredibly helpful for them. So that's another example. But generally, I think MBTI with the inferior function system inspires us to work on the things that we're not very good at, so they can help us fix the behaviors that is not very good for us. I think there is a beautiful and obvious coalition right there that I just want you guys to notice, and if you also see it, then use it. If you're looking to integrate as your Enneagram type, if you're looking to deal with those unhealthy behaviors, as I hope you are, you should use your inferior function for that and your primary functions, but you should always look to expand your toolbox. And as I've talked about before, that's basically what MBTI is to me. It's your function stack, it's your toolbox, it's what you are good at. And the more things you are good at, the more problems you'll be able to solve, and the more efficiently you'll be able to solve them. Which is why I think these two systems work together so beautifully. So this was just another example of that. And I think that's all I got for now. I'll go back to researching that introverted sensing, and I'll be back with that video, hopefully sooner rather than later, but I can't tell. Until then, remember, be yourself, everybody else is taken.